you can always say woulda, coulda, shoulda. And, we should have won this amount. Well, you probably should have lost a few also. It just was not in the cards for us. I think this was a tremendous learning experience for this club. They took a tremendous step forward, and we'll be better. We got a lot of work to do, and we're going to start getting it done. Roll up our sleeves and get it done.
You say they'll be better, but how much excitement do you have for the growth that this team has went through?
Obviously this was a very emotional day for a lot of reasons, but, I told you guys when I took the job, I thought this was a golden era for the Seattle Mariners, and they haven't let me down. And I think it's only going to get better. I mean, you guys can see that yesterday with the kids that we brought in here with the awards. Those are pretty impressive numbers. So I'm excited. My unit out there is excited. They're a little disappointed right now, but they had a hell of a year.
When you came, you said you were going to deliver a message about how it was going to be the first day. Do you feel like these guys have really bought into that and that philosophy?
Well, listen, I wasn't trying to lay down a law or anything. I mean, baseball is what it is. I was just trying to get them to buy into a philosophy. That's all. And I think they did a good job of buying into what we're selling. I'm no different than the next guy. I'm not any smarter than anybody, and I'm not any dumber. This is a people's game, and you have to have relationships, and you got to know how to communicate. And I think I do that pretty good.
You talked about the other day about the 06 Detroit team kind of stumbling down the stretch and that helping you going forward. Can this team learn from these last couple of weeks?
Sure. I think we've learned a lot, and hopefully Major League Baseball has learned a lot from the schedule that we had this year. So we'll see.
You gave Felix a big hug there as you took him out. Can you talk about what he gave you this year?
Well, Felix is a hell of a competitor, and truthfully, he wasn't at full strength today, and there was no talking him out of not starting this game, and he really didn't want to come out in the sixth. And I just said, to hell with it, I'm going to get him. So I was surprised he gave me a hug. I thought he'd probably hit me, but it's pretty good.
When was it at full strength?
Well, it's been a long year. It's been a grind. He logged a lot of innings, a lot of strikeouts, and a lot of pressure situations. Won a lot of 1-0 games, 2-1, 3-2. It was a long year in a lot of respects for him.
Do you think he should win the Cy Young?
Of course I do. I mean, the hell, you think I'm crazy? Yeah, he should win the Cy Young.
Do you feel good that he ended on a note like this rather than the Toronto start, a positive outing?
Yeah, I was very happy. Yeah, I mean, the Toronto's, the back was pretty tough, I mean, he pitched extremely well for, 4 and a third, and all of a sudden the wheels came off for some reason. But I was really happy he went out on this positive note.
You had your group together for one last time. What did you tell them?
I told him it was a hell of a year. I was very proud of him. But I also told him that they're no longer the prey. They're the hunters now. And with being hunters, there's a responsibility. Responsibility to me, this organization, to your teammates, and how you go about your business this offseason is very important. So that's the message that I sent him.
Why was it important to get both Robbie and Felix off in the middle of an inning?
I just thought that, our fans should have an opportunity to thank them for the tremendous years that both of them have had. And I thought our fans were just tremendous in that respect because both of those guys grinded it out all year, and they're big-time players, and I thought they deserved that.
The scoreboard went from 4-0, and then they showed that it was ninth inning, and then they showed final, and the crowd kind of gasped a little bit, and then about a few seconds later, everybody started cheering and applauding. Did you notice all that was going through your head?
It was one of my proudest moments. I thought it said a lot about our fans.
When you look at the 5-game skid that you had there in Houston, Toronto, to get the guys to turn it back around, to put this finishing kick in, when it could have gone the other way too, where they could have just said, "Oh, we're out of it, packing it." What does that say about what you guys were able to do?
Well, I've said all along they're very resilient. It's a tough group, and you know when you think they're down and out, they get up off the mat, and they did it again.
For you, how deflating was that in the fifth inning when it's all UCD is taking these hits? It's not possible.
Yeah, disappointing. I wouldn't say deflating. It was disappointing because our guys had really poured their hearts into this season. But listen, it is what it is, and the A's deserve what they got. You know, we just came up a little short.
Lloyd, you mentioned the fans. Can you even talk about the pride level from when you took this place over? There was not much of a buzz with this ball club, and now Mariner baseball is back on the map in the city.
Well, you know, listen, I'm not here to chastise, but I think you guys had a lot to do with that, not the fans. I think our fans have been great since day one. When I went into the first coffee shop, you know, they were tremendous. So, and they haven't disappointed. So, you know, maybe it's a wake-up call for all of us. Sometimes we forget just how hard it is to compete at this level, and it ain't easy. Trust me. Go ask the Oakland Athletics. It's not easy. For a long time, they were the best team in baseball, and they had to wait to the last day of the season to get in. So sometimes we lose that perspective.
When you talk about Felix's health coming into the game, was there anything specific that was?
No, he was just tired. He was just tired, that's all.
Hey, Lloyd, how was that AE score relayed to you?
It was on the scoreboard.
So you got it from the scoreboard as
Yeah.
opposed to somebody. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know if somebody
No,
else was watching.
it was on
and
the
told you.
scoreboard.
So you.
Yeah.
Right.
This was a very hard game to manage because I had one eye on the scoreboard and the other eye on what's going on the field. It's kind of tough. So